2 days of mandatory minicamp officially in the books. So what's been the overall theme and what has stood out the most? That plus more on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for June 12th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show continues to grow each and every day, even in the offseason, because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good by way of the YouTube page. So shout out to you, Raider Nation, and shout out to my man Ari. You can find him on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show for any reason, you can hit us up 707-654-4693. Calls, texts, whatever the case may be, you want to be a part of the show, we got you. As a matter of fact, that's how we'll close the show out in segment number 3, hearing from you. Plenty of feedback. Just know, if you're a new caller to the show, you only get 3 minutes on your voicemail. We really prefer it to be less than that so we can get as many in as possible, but just understand that if all of a sudden it seems like your call is going a little bit long and 3 minutes in your head goes off, guess what? 3 minutes, the voicemail goes off. So it'll clip you. It'll cut you after 3 minutes. So just kind of keep that in mind, that the longer your call is, the more likely that it's going to get cut off. But we got plenty of great feedback we'll get to coming up in segment number 3. Segment number 2, what must happen, non-negotiable for the Raiders in 2025 and beyond if they want to be the team that they're expecting to be. The coaching staff, the players, Raider Nation, all that. This is a non-negotiable that we'll talk about coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day has to do with mandatory minicamp, the roster as they've made an addition, and there could be more additions on the way. We'll get into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Of course, I'll tell you more about them later on in the show. And before I really get into the meat of the show, I also want to go ahead and pass along this extra special birthday shout out. Hey, Q, this is Marina from Lodi, Cali. I've been listening to and loving the podcast for a couple years now, but this is my first time texting in. I was wondering if you could give a shout out to my sons, Maximilian and Grayson. June 12th is my son Max's 11th birthday, and it'd be amazing to see him if you could tell him happy birthday. Max's name means the greatest, and that is just what he is to us. We're so proud of him and the wonderful person he is. Max is a Raider fan through and through and has his room filled with Raider memorabilia, especially his favorite guy, Max Crosby. On the night of the draft, we were especially impressed with the number 6 overall pick, Ashton Genty. My son loved the piece done afterwards with Genty's life story. So excited to hear that he played for Boise State, which happened to be the same school his 5th grade teacher's daughter attends, so he knew all about the blue turf. More importantly, Genty's dad is a retired chief in the Navy. My husband, Max and Grayson's dad, is also a chief in the Navy Reserves and will be retiring in a few short months after serving for 20 years. Our family couldn't be prouder of his service and are excited to see Genty and the Raiders this season. So happy birthday, Max. Keep shining bright and being a leader. Go Raiders. That is from your mama, Marina, from Lodi, California. And shout out to Maximilian. Shout out to Grayson. Happy birthday, Max. And definitely big shout out to Pops, right? 20 years, Navy Reserves. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your service. Now, let's go ahead and get into a little news and notes of the day. 2 days are officially in the books when it comes to mandatory minicamp, and I don't know if there's going to be a third day of actual practice, right? Today is scheduled to be day 3, but more times than not, coaches will call off day 3 and let the players get an early jump on their vacation and get up out of the facility and be about their way, especially if they feel like they've done really well in the offseason workout programs and the OTAs and mandatory minicamp for the first couple days. And I feel like the Raiders are going to do that. I feel like that they've had some really good OTAs from what I've been able to see and what I've been able to hear. Everything has gone on pretty well so far with Pete Carroll's staff and obviously all the players that are there in attendance. So I'm not too sure what time you'll be listening to this. Obviously, practice might already be over. It might be called. We're supposed to have practice and be able to observe from 10 to 12, and then Pete Carroll's supposed to be speaking with us around noon, and then a few players as well. But that's subject to change based off if they actually have practice today or not. But I'll tell you what, it's been a very spirited couple days of mandatory minicamp. Guys are all clearly bought in. I've mentioned it before. Nobody is out there and acting like they don't want to be out there. Lincoln Kennedy said he was out there because he wanted to observe the energy. He wanted to see the guys, commitment to the team, how many of the guys he felt really wanted to be out there and the guys that didn't want to be out there. And if the energy, the excitement, the positivity that he's been hearing about is actually true. And, from Lincoln's standpoint, a lot of really good things that he was seeing and he was hearing and he was taking away. And I'll tell you what, you want to be blessed? Stand next to Lincoln Kennedy during a practice and just let him tell you what he sees. Not what you see. Just be quiet. Let him tell you what he sees. A lot of really good stuff to unpack from what Lincoln Kennedy had to say. And there was an overall theme that this team has really been focused on. Jacorian Bennett mentioned it to us on Tuesday following mandatory minicamp day number 1. We'll talk about that in segment number 2 and really kind of deep dive into what I saw in day 2 of practice coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to go ahead and pass along this information. Raiders roster moves. They made one move on Wednesday, and there could be another move coming up. Jordan Schultz from NFL on Fox sent me the tweet and sent me the text. Breaking, former Bengals linebacker Jermaine Pratt is signing a 1-year deal worth up to $4.78 million with the Raiders. Pratt started all 17 games last season. Is coming off a career-high 143 tackles to go along with 2 INTs, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. He says sources say Pratt had a very hot market after being released by the Bengals and had several teams interested in him. The Raiders ultimately made the most sense with the opportunity you'll have with Pete Carroll and defensive coordinator Patrick Graham's defense. So it's funny. We were just talking about, do the Raiders need to go out and make a move for a veteran? Right, a cornerback and a linebacker. We specifically talked about that after Jermaine Pratt and also Jair Alexander were released by their respective teams on Monday. So we did a whole conversation about that on Tuesday, and I know there was some Raider Nation that was chiming in and texting in talking about Alexander and, bring him in or try to go get Jalen Ramsey. Some people mentioned Jermaine Pratt. Well, Jermaine Pratt gets a pretty nice deal, right? A deal worth up to $4.78 million is nothing to shake a stick at. That's a pretty good 1-year deal right there. And it's funny because we talked to Devin White, linebacker, who's on a 1-year deal. We talked to Tyree Wilson. We talked to Adam Butler. And we talked to Isaiah Palomau on Wednesday following practice. Then all of a sudden, later on, while I'm on my radio show, we get the news about linebacker Jermaine Pratt. So we know Landon Roberts is there. We know Devin White is there. Now we know Jermaine Pratt is there. Obviously, they've got, Cody Lindenberg, who they drafted in the 7th round. Amari Gaynor is still there. So he's a guy that can provide some competition. There's going to be some other dudes in the room that are going to be able to provide some competition, but you feel pretty good about the veterans that are in the building. Jalen Smith is there, so I'm sure Devin White, Jalen Smith, they'll probably battle it out for a spot, but the linebacking room, it got a lot better as far as I'm concerned. A guy who's a very consistent tackler, a guy that's had ball production as far as 2 picks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. That'll be a theme coming up in segment number 2, just to give you a little early preview. Yeah, I think the linebacking room got a lot better with the signing of Jermaine Pratt. It didn't stop there. Also, free agent cornerback Shaquille Griffin is visiting with the Raiders. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN put this tweet out on Wednesday afternoon. Free agent cornerback Shaquille Griffin is visiting the Raiders per source. Former Pro Bowler also visited Seattle earlier in the offseason. And Shaquille Griffin is the brother of Shaquem Griffin. And if you remember, Shaquem is the guy that was in the draft and he didn't have, they're twin brothers and one didn't have his hand. Shaquem is the one that didn't have the hand. They both ended up on the Seahawks. He didn't have as long as career as Shaquille did. Shaquille's still playing really well. In 2024, he's with the Vikings. He's very familiar with Pete Carroll. In 2024, he had 2 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, 54.6 QBR allowed last year, and career overall 84.8 allowed with the Seahawks, along with 6 interceptions. So would not be surprised if they decided to go and add some depth at the cornerback position in Shaquille Griffin. It's funny, we're talking about Lincoln Kennedy. One of the questions that I asked him was about veteran cornerbacks, and we were talking about the secondary being young, and he told me that he didn't think that the Raiders would go out and add a veteran like Jair Alexander or a guy like Jalen Ramsey because you don't want to mess up the chemistry with a very young team, right? They're building a certain culture and chemistry with these young guys. A lot of times you don't want to disrupt that with guys that, have strong personalities or, different kind of cats. And that's who Jair Alexander is ultimately. And then Jalen Ramsey costs a lot of money. So he obviously doesn't know what John Spytek and company are thinking, but he said just from the outside looking in, I would doubt that they go and make a move for a veteran cornerback like that just because you don't want to mess up the chemistry that they have cooking as of right now. So One more nugget that I have for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, little news and notes of the day. Joel Corey, former sports agent. He works for CBS Sports right now. He was a part of my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, on Raider Nation Radio 920 Wednesday afternoon. And a lot of the conversation has been about Jack Besh, right? Second round pick. He's the only one of the Raiders draft picks out of the 11 that has not signed his contract right now. So here's Joel Corey on if there should be any concern about Jack Besh still not under contract.
Well, no second-round pick is going to hold out of training camp, so these deals will get done in the second round before everyone goes to camp. So I really wouldn't worry. He's there operating under minicamp protection, off-season workout protection agreement, so no harm, no foul from that standpoint. From what I understand from talking to a few people, the big holdup now is Tyler Shuck. Sometimes quarterbacks after the first round get treated slightly differently than everybody else in the round. He's expected to be the Saints starting quarterback since Derek Carr has retired. He's trying to get a fully guaranteed contract. So nobody above him wants to go because they don't want to look foolish and have the guy who's at number 8 in the round, if you're the third or fourth pick in the round, a fully guaranteed contract, and you don't. And people behind him, if he gets one, want to use that deal to increase the guarantees in the fourth year. Last year, the last second-round pick to have any guarantees in the second round was Jackson Powers Johnson at the 12th pick. Mm-hmm. So they want to – everyone after that, if Shuck can get a fully guaranteed contract, wants to use that to better the guarantees that they have. So they want to extend the guarantee in the third year if they can, or at some point you can have a trickle-down effect, but he's the reason that we have a big holdup in the second round. Last year, the last second-round pick to sign was Lag McConkey. On June 17th, you only got 2 signed so far.
I thought that was a good explanation right there from Joel Corey on why Jack Besh and many of the second-round picks are not under contract yet, and more of it has to do with Tyler Shuck, the quarterback from the New Orleans Saints, who looks to be the starting quarterback, as opposed to even what the Houston Texans did with fully guaranteeing their second-round pick, that contract money. So that's really the big holdup. But as you heard him say, it's going to be fine. It'll get taken care of sooner rather than later. But just expect the deal for Shuck to get done before all these other guys decide to sign their contracts. So that's what I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Little news and notes, kind of scatter shooting with mandatory minicamp and obviously some roster news as well. So what must the Raiders do in 2025 and beyond to be the team that they want to be, right? The team that Raider Nation is expecting and hoping that they're going to be this year, where they can win 8, 9, 10, maybe even 11 games, get to the playoffs and make a run. This has to change as opposed to what we saw last year and previous years. This has to change. What is this? We'll talk about it in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors here on the show, and that is the Skylight Calendar. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribble plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites, because the Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. It's sleek. It's got a digital display. It syncs with your existing calendars like Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. And now you can eliminate the family that says, oh, I didn't know about this. I had no idea. Oh, no. You can eliminate that. And matter of fact, if you have multiple family members, you can even color coordinate, right? Like Luda would say, my style's got to coordinate, right? You gotta color coordinate all the different family members so they know exactly who's being represented on that spot of the calendar. And it comes on a 15-inch HD screen, so you can stay focused and you're less overwhelmed, and you can check out everything. It's super clear. There's no excuses. There's no excuses anymore. Right now, you want to get in on it? Skylight is offering all listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. That's skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. It's Skylight Cal, SKYLIGHTCAL.com/NFL. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to talk about the non-negotiable What do the Raiders need to do in 2025 and beyond to be the team that they want to be, the team that this coaching staff wants them to be, and the team that Raider Nation wants them to be? They have to create turnovers. They don't create enough turnovers, and it's been a very long time since they've created a lot of turnovers. It's just that simple. It's got to get back to creating turnovers. The defense could be as good as they want to be, but if they're not creating turnovers, they're not getting any extra possessions for the offense. The offense isn't going to get enough opportunities to score as many points as they need to. And again, you just have to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you, which are going back to creating turnovers. You've got to be able to do that. Why did this subject come up? What made me think of this? Well, going back and listening to some of the players that we've got a chance to talk to at Mandatory Minicamp, I went back to the conversation that we had with Jacorian Bennett, and one piece that stood out to me outside of the fact that he played with a torn labrum and his shoulder kept popping out and he had to keep popping it back in. Like, that's what stood out to most people about what he had to say. But Levi Edwards asked him a question about working with Pete Carroll and what he took away from it so far, and that stood out to me. Check out what they said.
What are some things you feel like you've learned from him so far in just terms of being a better corner, and how do you think he can affect that room just as a head coach?
Yeah, man, he's all about just getting the ball. And, like, that's why I low-key want to kind of implement in my game, because I know, you know, like you said, had a lot of breakups or whatever, but if I could turn those breakups to picks, I can really, like, help change the game. And so he's really all about, you know, just getting the ball back. It's all about the ball. That's what we preach each and every day. So him instilling that confidence in us, it means a lot. And let's go translate to the field.
Levi Edwards, Raiders.com, right there, asking the question to Jacorian Bennett about Coach Carroll. And you heard what JB said, the ball. Got to get the ball. It's all about the ball. All they care about is ball, 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 ball. Go get the ball. And guess what? The Raiders don't do that enough. The Raiders only turned the opponents over 13 times. They created 13 total turnovers in 2024. 16 if you're counting their fourth down stops, because opponents were what? I think they were 10 out of 13 in 2024. So they got stopped 3 times. So you want to count those as turnovers as well, which they are. We could say that. They had 16. Fine. But all in all, 10 interceptions and only 3 fumble recoveries. Perfect example, Kirby Joseph, the safety from the Lions last year, he led the league in interceptions with 9. The Raiders as a team only had 10. That has got to change. They've got to come away with that ball hawk mentality and do exactly what Jacorian Bennett said, go get the ball, right? I mean, it's one thing to, again, knock a ball down, break up a pass, that's fine, but you've got to be able to get the ball. Another reason, it's funny that this conversation came up, and I spoke about it on my radio show on Wednesday as well. At the end of practice, camp practice number 2, at the end of that, there was 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions. Max Crosby sniffed out a screen pass, and Darnay Holmes had 2 interceptions, one off a tip pass, and then one he just picked off Aiden O'Connell. So there was 3 interceptions, which again goes to the conversation and the theme of going and getting the ball. You've got to get the ball, and especially seeing Max Crosby sniff out a screen pass and intercept that one off of Geno Smith to take it to the house. That's a pick 6, throws the ball over the fence. He was so excited about it, and the defense was as well. They're creating good habits, right? They're starting to look for the ball. They want to find the ball more consistently, and that's been a problem for the Raiders for a very long time. And we know how good Max is. We know he can get to the quarterback, and we see him bat balls down, but we don't see him force enough fumbles, get enough fumble recoveries, and sure, we don't see him intercept the ball. And the funny thing is, when I say that they're habit forming, and that's what they're trying to do, like they're trying to create this habit. If you follow me on Twitter, at your boy Q254, before team drills started in practice on Wednesday, they did individual drills. So we're allowed to walk around the practice facility, and we could observe the defense. We could observe the offense. We can, whatever we want to do, we could take videos, pictures. It's just one-on-one drills. So I tweeted out a video. Robbie Leonard, defensive line coach, Max Crosby, Tyree Wilson, and Malcolm Kuntz. They were all working together by themselves. And what they were doing is they were working on Max, Tyree, or Malcolm dropping in coverage. So in this play, I believe it was Tyree Wilson that was pretending to be the running back. And Max had to basically shadow him. Instead of crashing and going to the quarterback to try to sack him, he had to read and react, which was get down the line of scrimmage, follow the back out of the backfield, and make a play. And he made a play in that little, one-on-one drills. He did do that. Matter of fact, a couple of the guys did it, and it looked really good. And then all of a sudden it translated into the practice field. Again, they're creating habits. They're creating, the mind recognition, being able to, your eyes are able to see what you're supposed to be trying to accomplish, which again is going and getting the ball. So they have to make sure that they do that. What they've been able to do and create as far as turnovers is just not been good enough, right? And obviously it's going to help if they can get to the quarterback a lot, right? I mean, the Raiders had 38 sacks last season, led by Max Crosby, 7.5. Remember, he only played in 12 games. Adam Butler had 5. He was second. So you think if these guys are healthy and they play throughout the course of the season, Malcolm Kuntz is back, Tyree takes a step forward, you think that number could be closer to 50 sacks, which should rush quarterbacks into bad passes, right? There could be fumbles, all that, but it gives them more opportunities to create turnovers. Think about this. Head coach Pete Carroll, his whole time in Seattle, never had one season, not one season, where his unit had less than 11 interceptions. Not one time his years in Seattle did his teams ever have less than 11 interceptions. I went through 25 years of Raiders defense, and there were some years with Rob Ryan as their DC that they did pretty good, 16, 17, 18. I had to go all the way back to 2002, the Super Bowl year when they lost to John Gruden in Tampa Bay. I had to go all the way back to that year to find a season where they had more than 20 interceptions. They had 21 that year, right? And then, 2 years before that, so in 2000, they also had 21. But everything else they had, I'm trying to see. Look, I'm trying to write this down. They had 21 in 2000, 17 in 2001, 21 in 2002, 14 in 03, 9 in 04, 5 in 05, 18. This is the Rob Ryan years in 06, 17, 16, 16, 12, 18. Like that was a good run there. But Pete Carroll's units, in the year that they won the Super Bowl, 28 interceptions, right? Another year, 21 interceptions, 22. But he never had less than 11. And so when you hear JB say they're all about the ball, that's a stat that's definitely has to be improved. And I believe with this coaching staff, it will be improved. And now in practice, they're showing the attention to detail to make sure that is improved. One thing that I was very impressed with the 49ers when they came to Vegas for joint practices a couple seasons ago was the fact that they go through drills before they actually break off into team drills during practice. When they're just in the individuals, they have the linebackers, the corners, the safeties. They have them all go through tip drills, right? Where a coach is throwing the ball and then somebody will bat it up almost volleyball style and a guy will go get the ball. But they'll practice getting that weird bounce and getting that, that reflection and having your body have that immediate reaction. They were doing that. And I remember asking Vinny Bonsignore, I was like, how come the Raiders don't do that? You would think that would just help create that instant reaction. So when you see a ball tip, boom, see ball, get ball. Like Charles Woodson always used to say. There was a year, what year was it? I got it here. 2015, the Raiders had 14 interceptions in 2015 as a team. Charles Woodson led the team with 5. That was Charles Woodson, the return, right? Think about that. Charles Woodson as a safety, a much older player, led the team 5. In 14, that was the year that was the first year he was back. They had 9 as a team, and he had 4. So those 2 years, 14 and 15, Charles Woodson had 9 interceptions. The Raiders had, 23 as a team, right? So, and I'm telling you, the last few years has been rough. 2024, the Raiders had 10. That was last year. 2023, 13. 2022, 6. 2021, 6. 2020, 10. It's not enough. Remember John Gruden used to always say, got to create more turnovers. And people will say, oh, yeah, well, what about this? What if it's on you? And got to get more turnovers. He wasn't wrong. They've got to be able to create turnovers. If you want to be that team, right? I've been very, as a matter of fact, about 8 to 9 wins. I feel like that's fair. If you want to be in the 10, 11, 12 win range, create some more turnovers. You have to. You have to be able to get the ball back to your offense and give them in favorable positions, right? Give them a short field every once in a while, right? Take one back. Get creative. Take one back to the house. How about that? Right? We always talk about 3 phases of the game. We always talk about offense, defense, and special teams, but it's also elements to that. And one element to the defense is to be able to create turnovers. Be optimistic. Opportunistic. What am I talking about? Opportunistic. 2016, that's the year we always reference, right? That's the year that the Raiders, if Derek Carr doesn't break the ankle, then, who knows what happens. They had 16 interceptions that year. Their defense wasn't great that year, but they created a bunch of turnovers. They were number 1 in the league in turnover ratio. They didn't turn the rock over very often, and they created a bunch of turnovers. And guess what? They were, a 12-win team? You know what I mean? So that's the thing. Like, it translates. When you create the turnovers, you're going to have a winning product. Finally, here in segment number 2, I know we're going a little bit long. I want you to hear this because I thought it was pretty telling of what some players do and what Hall of Famers do. Eric Allen, who's going to go into the Hall of Fame later on this summer, right, in August in Canton, Ohio. He's going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, has 54 career interceptions. He was a guest on the morning tailgate on Wednesday on Raider Nation Radio 920. Vince Sapienza and Vinny Bonsignore, they were both at Raiders HQ, and so, EA just walked into the podcast studio, sat down, and they talked to him for about 10 minutes, and Vinny Bonsignore asked him straight up about, you have 54 career interceptions. That doesn't happen on accident. What was it that made you so good at going and getting the INT? This is telling of what EA did to make sure that he was really good and knew what he was doing when it came to going and attacking and hunting the ball. Thought this was great. Check it out.
I just always felt very comfortable taking chances. And people call those chances. I would play a lot of football after maybe year 3 or 4 from the shoulder pads up. And I would, in the offseason, take the dominant offense, whether that is the West Coast or the run and shoot, and I would take that offseason, and whoever the receiver was in that offense, whether it was Jerry or Sterling or, so many other guys, Andre Reed, I would be him in the offseason. So I'd run all his routes. So I would get the play, like, okay, this is the play here, was first and whatever. You run a 12-yard out or you run, a quick slant. So I would do that in the offseason. So now during the season with the film prep, I put myself in that situation. So it's first down and we're playing the 49ers and, Jerry's isolated off ball. And I would put it all together. And like, okay, Jerry hasn't got a ball yet. They got to get him off. He's backside. The back is, if it's Joe Montana, the back's going to be set to the left because he's a right-hander. He's going to be set to the opposite side for Steve Young because he's a left-hander. And so everything's set up. And I'm just going to, I know there's going to be an out route. So, you put yourself in those positions and you just take that chance, take that opportunity. So it's all about film preparation, breakdown, skill set. I was always a baseball player when I was younger, so I always thought I could catch. I played offense, obviously, in high school. So all those things are a part of it. But the most important was that off-season prep that gave me the confidence to kind of understand kind of what's going on.
So as I talk about mandatory minicamp getting wrapped up, whether they have a practice day today or not, or they just tell them to go off into the sunset and let them go on a vacation and come back at the end of July for training camp. It's that offseason work. You hear what EA said? It's that offseason work. It's what he did on his own. Decided to go and become a wide receiver, run the routes so he could recognize it. Like he said, after year 3 or 4 in the league, it was from the shoulder pads up. It was all between the ears, right? All the film study, all the knowledge of the game, studying the opponent, studying the offenses, knowing the routes, knowing, certain players when they're expected to make plays. That's what allowed him to take chances, and not reckless chances, but calculated chances to create turnovers. That's what the Raiders need to do. And everyone's not going to be a Hall of Famer. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is a select fraternity for a reason, right? It's the extra special person to end up earning your way to the Pro Football Hall of Fame like EA. But you could do the extra work. You can do the extra film study. You can create good habits like Pete Carroll's trying to do with the team right now, and you can start working your way to at least being a defense that can create a bunch of turnovers. Again, to have the success that they want to have in 2025, you have to find a way to turn the ball over. Create turnovers. Get the ball back for your offense. It's a non-negotiable for the Raiders to have that success. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts. We'll close out the show. 707-654-4693. We'll do that next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. The NBA Finals, they're in full swing, and look at here. We have a series. The Pacers are up 2-1 on OKC. I'll tell you this, I've got OKC winning it in 6. At least for my money, I know it's going to go 6. At least that's guaranteed, right? Every night will deliver highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win really big. You can have prop bets, mid-game bets, right? Same-game parlays. You can do a lot to get in on the action and stay in the action all game long. And I'm sure $200 in bonus bets would be nice, right? You can use that, right? Well, if your first $5 bet hits, you can get that. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, as I mentioned, you'll get $200 in bonus bets just like that. Make every moment more with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Got some calls and texts. We'll try to hustle through as many as possible at 707-654-4693. Connor in Florida hit us up. Matter of fact, this was on, Tuesday he hit us up. What's up, Q? It's Connor from Florida. Once again, I'm ready to share my thoughts on 2 players that have recently been released from their respective teams. Some Raider fans that want them to move to the silver and black. Those 2 are, of course, Jair Alexander from Green Bay and Jermaine Pratt from the Cincinnati Bengals. I wanted to share that I'd rather take Pratt over Alexander if given the choice. Reason being is that the secondary still needs some help, but at least it has depth. Outside of Landon Robertson and Devin White, the linebacker room gets very thin after those 2, and Pratt could be a solid rotational player on the Raiders. He was decent for the Bengals during his 6 seasons with them and can give a boost to the linebacker room. If you land on this message, remember to share your thoughts and opinions, Q. And as always, just win, baby. Raiders. That's Connor in Florida. And, I guess you talked that one into existence because Jermaine Pratt now is a member of the Silver and Black. Now, the Raiders haven't made it official yet, but we know it's out there. We know the money. We know that it's a 1-year deal. And everything that you said about Jermaine Pratt is the great reason to bring him in. And I do feel like him, Landon Roberts, Devin White, they'll all have a role on the team, obviously. I think Devin White and Jalen Smith will probably have to battle it out for a spot. And then there'll be some younger guys that will probably get into the mix later on. Tommy Eichenberg is one of them. Cody Lindenberg is another one. Amari Gaynor is another one. Like, those guys will all have something to say about it. But, I think that just makes that linebacking room that much better because, it was one that did not have a whole lot of depth, as you pointed out. So thanks for the text, Connor. Definitely appreciate you. Good call on that one, as a matter of fact. We'll go ahead and get another text. We'll switch things up. Bodai Raider from the 858 said, "Hey, Q, just saw your question to Adam Butler. Curious how you took that. He didn't seem to understand your question. I'm excited for you to do a whole show on the inner game of tennis. I'm going to be a performance coach. One of my favorite things about following the Raiders is the level of mindset, discipline, effort. With all the drama in the NFL, it's easy to forget how hard these men work." That's from Bodai Raider from the 858. Thanks so much for the text. And, that's going to be one of the things I asked Pete Carroll about today, and we get to talk to him about the inner game of tennis and what that has done for him as far as a coach and how he, applies it each and every day to his coaching philosophy and style and all that good stuff. As far as Adam Butler, a few people have asked me about that. I just asked him a question about the process of, learning this new defense. Even though Patrick Graham is still the defensive coordinator, it's still a new style, and every player has told us it's still new. This is not really the same defense. They've got plenty of new elements to it. So I just asked him about the process and working with the new staff, but you're right, he didn't understand it. So he just said I can't answer it. It's too vague, and that was cool. I mean, it happens sometimes. Guys don't understand what you're trying to say, and, maybe I could have worded it better. Either way, it was no big deal. I think Adam Butler is a great dude. Like, I had a couple reporters afterwards were like, I thought the question was fine. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, and Adam Butler's a nice guy. And I was like, yeah, I never said he wasn't. Like, everything's fine. I was like, oh, well, man, are you upset? And I was like, no, like, it's not that serious, man. I mean, at least he didn't try to make up an answer when he didn't understand the question. That would have been worse, right? Because then probably would have been like, well, what the hell was he talking about? So no big deal. I mean, it probably was on me as opposed to on him. I'll take that. That's fine. But Adam Butler's a great dude. He's a great leader, and the Raiders are lucky to have him, actually. I'm glad he got that contract extension. I talked to him about that at the Silver and Black Gala not too long ago. Adam Butler's a fantastic dude, but I'm with you. I just think that he didn't quite understand what I meant. And like I said, sometimes that happens. Probably was on me. I probably could have explained it a little bit better. Up next, got a call from 6'7" from the west side of Phoenix. He's calling to talk about Jair Alexander, Jalen Ramsey, and what to do as far as the cornerback room goes. Here goes 6'7" from the west side of Phoenix.
Hey, Raider Nation, Q. It's your boy 6'7" from the west side of Phoenix. I I ain't called in a while, but just been listening to a lot of the conversation about what we're going to do, and with the cornerback situation, with Jair, with Jalen Ramsey. Been a Raider fan for a while, man, a long time. I'm 50 years old. Probably been watching the Raiders since they took Todd Marinovich. As a Raiders fan, we haven't had that much success in the last 20 years. And I asked myself, what would Alex's motto was just win? I think the risk reward with Jair Alexander and to try to pick and maybe trying to talk Ramsey into transitioning into the safety position later on. It's like a 3-year deal. I don't know. Maybe it's the same deal that Pete Carroll has as far as years and Geno Smith. We don't have time. We've got to get a quarterback ready. We've got to get those young corners ready, but maybe that gives them a little bit more time to get them corners ready to play with some veterans in position to be able to teach these young bucks how to do it. I'm tired of losing, man. I'd rather gamble it and see if we can get Jalen Ramsey and Jair. Why not, man? Put that stuff on incentive-based salary, so these guys are going to work and not just give them the money like they deserve it. So just my 2 cents, man. I don't think there's any NFL player, any NFL team that just wants to say, hey, we're rebuilding. Hey, we took Genty. Hey, we've got Brock Bowers. Let's go ahead and go 8-8. I mean, that would be great. Okay, well, why are we settling, man? Let's just try to go to the playoffs. Let's try to win a Super Bowl. That's the goal every year, is to win a Super Bowl, isn't it? So, I mean, what is it going to take for us to get both corners in at one time? Let's go for it, man. I'm like, let's hit the home run and stop trying to bunt, man. Stop bunting. That's all we're doing is kicking the can down the road. That stuff's frustrating. Frustrating, man. Frustrating. Anyway, I'm out here walking my dog, man. Y'all enjoy y'all day. Raider Nation, Q. Let's go get both corners, man. I'm out.
6'7", thanks so much. 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot. Shout out to Lil Wayne when everyone was still a big Lil Wayne fan, right? Not when he dropped the Carter 6. That's another conversation. But, yeah, I mean, you cut out a little bit, but eventually you got to Alexander and Ramsey. Look, Ramsey's owed $21 million this year. I don't know what Alexander is going to cost. I was talking to Joel Corey on my radio show and had a few sound bites from him, and he said that he needs to go somewhere where he can get a 1-year deal, real incentive heavy, and just show and prove that he could be on the field and stay on the field. I wouldn't have a problem bringing Alexander, even if he didn't last but 5 or 6 games or whatever the case may be, as long as the money wasn't, real high. And I don't think it would be, because it doesn't seem like John Spytek and company are going to spend a lot of money. I think that they're really smarter than that. But the other thing is, I don't really see them wanting to do that, right? Just as I was talking about the conversation I had with Lincoln Kennedy when he was talking about, veteran guys, certain veteran guys, especially guys that could be a little rough around the edges at times. You might not want to bring those guys in and disrupt the chemistry and the camaraderie that the young guys have already created, right? They're working really hard to build something. They've got something really good and positive going. Sometimes you got to think about that chemistry in the locker room before you just bring anybody in. So those are a couple reasons why I don't think either one of those guys are going to happen. Ramsey for the money. That's the other big thing. He's owed $21+ million this year, and he has no guaranteed money after this year. So he would have to want a contract extension. There's no doubt he's going to want a contract extension. How much money do you think that he's going to want? He's not going to be bargain basement. So I don't think that that's going to happen. But and on top of that, talking about going and trying to win the Super Bowl, and yeah, that's what it's for every year. Every team, that's what their goals are, to win the Super Bowl. There's no doubt about that. But every team knows that that's not in the cards for them this year. And I'm not even going to say that it's not in the cards for the Raiders. Obviously, because like you said, it's been far too long since they've been there. I get that. But you don't just snap your fingers and end up in the Super Bowl. If you did, everybody would do it, right? It's just not that way. You've got to build that thing up. Even Seattle, when they created their Super Bowl winning team, they didn't do it overnight, right? It took some building. The first time they made it into the playoffs, they didn't even have a winning record. Remember the year that they had the Beastquake when Marshawn Lynch ran all over the New Orleans Saints? They didn't even have a winning record that year, but they made it to the playoffs because the NFC West wasn't very good, and they actually won a game in the playoffs. So that's why I said 8 to 9 wins is reasonable, but you get to 8 and 9 wins, and then you win a couple games that you might not have been expected to win, then all of a sudden you're there at 10. Once you get to 10, you have a chance at the playoffs. And if you get to the playoffs, all bets are off. Anything could happen in the playoffs. you go on a run. You could be like the New York Giants, right, who went on a run and ended up beating the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl when they weren't expected to do that. Or, I don't know, you could be like the Raiders, who at one point were the first team ever as a wild card to make their way through the playoffs and win a Super Bowl, right? Now it's been done a couple times, but you can do that, but you got to get to the playoffs. So, like I said, 8 to 9 wins to me feels very reasonable. It's basically because they came off of 4 wins in 2024. But if you get to 8 or 9, you win a couple games, you get those turnovers that I was talking about in segment number 2, you could be at 10, and you get into the playoffs, all bets are off. Anything is possible there. I mean, you saw the Commanders last year. They were 1 game away from the Super Bowl. Just got to get on a roll in the playoffs. So thanks so much for that call. Definitely appreciate you. Let's go ahead and get another call. How about this one from JoJo? He's a Boise State fan. He's calling as a first-time listener, a new listener, and a new Raider fan, thanks to the draft into Ashton Genty. Here's JoJo, the Boise State fan.
Hello, this is JoJo calling in for the first time. I'm a huge Boise State fan turned Insta fan. As soon as Raiders drafted Ashton Genty. First time listening to the podcast. Been listening about a month now. Been loving your content, Q. So thank you. And just wanted to bring in my perspective on Ashton Genty, since I've been watching him for years and most, if not all, their games. So Ashton Genty, at first I was very didn't believe. In fact, I bet against him a lot, but he proved me wrong over and over again. I just wanted to reiterate, we got such a competitor. We got a natural leader, in my opinion, a humble leader, a good person. I feel like Raiders, obviously I could be biased, but Raiders made a great pick, in my opinion, and won't regret it. Another thing I wanted to mention was the question for Q is really just, what's the general feel at Allegiant Stadium? I know, with Boise State, they always would set a goal of beating the Mountain West Conference, obviously, and more of a mentality that they brought on that I think is really good is just every game is a playoff game, treat it as a playoff game, or win or go home. And that's why I feel like Boise State has so much success, especially in the last year. So I was just wondering what the feel is there. Is it Super Bowl? People are saying we got the Super Bowl this year, or is it just a winning season, or what, is that? So I was just wondering if there's a vibe on that yet. If not, when does that come? Is that towards training camp, or is it even closer to the season? Just wondering what the general feel is at Allegiant Stadium and what the staff / players are expecting this year. So may not be, it may be too early to have that, but that was my question. Thanks for listening, Raiders.
JoJo, thanks for the call. Welcome to Raider Nation. I think everything that you said about Ashton Genty is spot on. He's everything that you mentioned and then some, right? As far as Allegiant Stadium, it's awesome. It's a beautiful place to play. Right now, the Raiders, in my opinion, have not won enough to create a home field advantage. There's a lot of the opposing fans that go there right now. That's something that Pete Carroll has talked about. Hell, it's something that Antonio Pierce talked about. Got to do a better job of winning at home, and Raider Nation will be there. I think Ashton Genty is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting to get Raider Nation to be there and get excited about seeing him play, right? I know that you're not the only Boise State fan that is now a member of the Raider Nation. I remember talking to the Boise State head football coach right after Genty got drafted. He's like, man, I know I'm bleeding silver and black now, right? And he's like, there's a lot of Boise State fans that are going to be Raider fans now, and a lot of Boise State fans have been to Allegiant Stadium multiple times as the Broncos has played versus UNLV there, so and won some big-time games there as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful stadium. I think you'll enjoy it, but, again, the Raiders need to start winning there more often than not. As far as, them being a Super Bowl team, this, that, and the other, none of that's a part of the conversation right now. Like I said, and I just said it's 6-7. I'm thinking 8 or 9 wins year one under Pete Carroll is reasonable, but you get to 8 or 9 wins, you could get to 10, and you could start talking about the playoffs. So thanks so much for that call. Definitely appreciate you. We'll close things out with a text from Mason in the 937. What's up, Q? Mason in the 937 here. Been listening to the show every day lately and can't tell you how much the show centered on mental health meant to me. I love that you use your platform to bring it up and help normalize talking about mental health and taking care of yourself. Anyways, on to football. I know there's been a lot of attention on Genty, Besh, Porter, and even Cam Miller and Tommy Millott. My question for you, since you're out at mandatory minicamp this week, how is everyone feeling about Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant? I feel like I haven't heard their names a whole lot since they were drafted, but both guys were third-round picks and were obviously selected to bring some competition to the O-line room. Just want to hear your thoughts on what you've seen and heard the last couple months about them. Love the show as always, Q, and go Raiders. That's Mason at 937. It's funny that you bring up Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant because on Wednesday at mandatory minicamp, there was actually some really good conversation about those guys and the fact that, even though they're rookies and, they're not really out there loose, they're kind of tight because they're rookies. They don't want to make mistakes. But as Adam Butler was talking about, it just shows that they care. These guys, the rookie class, Colton Miller talked about it a little bit on Tuesday after mandatory minicamp. The rookie class is really trying to get after it and trying to prove why the Raiders drafted them and selected them. They are all busting their backsides, right, doing everything they can. So it's very early. It's hard to talk about offensive linemen when you don't have pads on because they're not really technically blocking. They're not being physical. They get to shine when they get to be physical, right? So right now this is just kind of, like I said, glorified 7-on-7, 11-on-11, where they're just there to get in the way. They're not there to necessarily block. But what they're doing is building camaraderie with each other right now. So that's the most important thing. But again, behind the scenes, like I said, Adam Butler and other players have said that all these rookies in this rookie class are out there trying to get after it. They've got that competitive edge. And again, that's who Pete Carroll is. All those guys drafted. When we talked to all these different people that cover these guys in college, they all said the same thing. These guys love football. They love to compete. They love football. They love to compete. Like, that was the theme, and that's what Pete Carroll and John Spytek talked to us about all the way at the scouting combine in Indianapolis. If you love football and you love to compete, there's a place for you here. If you don't, that's fine, but it's not a place for you here. So that's only a good thing. Competition is going to bring out the best in everybody. That's what you want. Competition, and more competition. So as, it gets into training camp and they actually put pads on, we'll get a better idea what they're looking like. But, right now they are out there, they're competing, and they're getting the respect of their teammates. So, Mason, thanks so much for that text. I appreciate you. A call from Joe in Arizona, a text from Jazzy Jeff in the Bay, Raider Goose in a 559, Flatland Raider, a text from Mike Rice. Got all that still coming up. So we won't be able to get to that, obviously, on today's show, but we'll definitely close out the week really strong with that. We'll also hear from Lincoln Kennedy. I got to talk to him on my radio show following mandatory minicamp on Tuesday. I didn't get to play the interview on Wednesday's show here, so we'll do that tomorrow as well. Of course, we'll have more news and notes and see if the Raiders actually practice today or if we just talk to Pete Carroll. But either way, we'll be back here closing out the week really strong. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.